welcome to another edition of the LTC EdTech webinar series. My name is Brian Bates. I'm the Director of Professional Learning with the LTC. And joining us today is Mindy Fiscus, the Digital Access Coordinator for the Learning Technology Center as well. Just a few quick reminders before we get started. First, we are recording this session. It'll be available on our website to watch on demand a little bit later on this afternoon. You can visit ltcillinois.org/events/webinars to watch it again. You'll also receive an email tomorrow afternoon with a link to watch it as well. So if you'd like to watch it again, you'd like to share it with someone else, please make sure you do that. If you'd like to ask questions of Mindy today during the session, please enter them into the chat box. Also, make sure you change the addressee to from just attendee, or I'm sorry, panelists, to all attendees and panelists. So that way everybody gets to see your questions and everybody can kind of follow along with what's going on. So without further ado, Mindy, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. You should be able to share your screen.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Oh, you need to enable my host for my sharing, please.
I have done so.
Okay, let's try it one more time. And now we can. Fantastic. All right, well, thank you for joining us today. Welcome to those of you who are with us in person. I know several of these ERate trainings also get viewed on recording because people are quite busy, not just this year, but every year. But in this special unicorn year, I know people are pulling you multiple directions. So thank you for spending some time with us this afternoon. As Brian said, we are going to talk about some ERate updates today. This is part of our 2021 webinar series with the LTC. We will be doing multiple ERate workshops through this mechanism throughout the year, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. My name is Mindy Fiscus. I am the Digital Access Coordinator for the Learning Technology Center, and I also serve as one of your state ERate coordinators. So I do serve that role at the national level, as well as participating in the Classroom Connectivity Project, working here in Illinois to get connectivity to all of our school districts in the state, fiber scalable connectivity preferred. And then I am on the board of directors for the State Education Technology Directors Association, as well as a member of the State ERate Coordinators Alliance. So I'm one of those crazy people who loves ERate, and someone called me earlier today an ERate cheerleader, so I will take that title. So welcome if you have not met me in person. Hopefully we can do that at some point. But I am always available virtual, and I think looking through the names, I've met with several of you virtually through Zoom already this school year. So first and foremost, I want to give everybody just kind of a background for those of you who are new to the program. ERate stands for Educational Rate. It is the reimbursement program through the FCC that was given to them as an initiative from Congress to help school districts with their connectivity and their distribution of internet throughout their school buildings back in the late 90s. So Congress gives record to the FCC and their marching orders. The FCC then determines the rules and regulations for the program, and they work with a company called a non-for-profit Universal Service Administrative Company, or USAC, and USAC manages the program for us. And so many times when you have a question for me and I say that's a question for USAC or that's a question for the FCC, that will pertain to whether or not it is a rule of the program or a practice of the program. And that's kind of how we divide those up. But those are the people who manage the program for us. They run a website called, it's just usac.org is what you go to. And they do run the ERate program. You can see circled there on the screen, but there are other programs that USAC also manages for the FCC. Rural healthcare is one of them, Lifeline and High Cost. All of those programs revolve around using the FCC programs like internet access, but it serves different segments of the population. So the first and foremost question I get most of the time is who is eligible for E-rate? And I did note that we had one of our wonderful alternative safe school regional offices on the line with us today. And so yes, you are eligible for the program. Any school in Illinois is eligible for the program, including our juvenile justice systems and our alternative safe school programs. So the state has deemed you as a school. That is all schools, public and private. Primarily, I work with public school districts and entities like special ed co-ops, vocational co-ops, regional offices of education. But we do get several private schools that come to our workshops and trainings and send me questions, and we welcome those questions as well. And libraries. And so we don't have a lot of interaction with libraries. There is a state E-rate coordinator for the libraries as well. She and I communicate regularly, and libraries are welcome to also partake in our services. So as the LTC, we offer all kinds of supports that we will go through here later on this webinar to make sure that you know what is available to support you in the process. But you can see here, one of the other questions I get frequently is about our pre-K centers in the state and whether or not they are eligible for the program. So just to be real clear for that, if your Head Start program is a part of a school district, or if your pre-K program is a part of the school district, they are eligible for services in E-rate. If they are standalone or privately owned preschool programs or a standalone Head Start program, they are deemed not eligible for E-rate. You'll see the other things in here are also eligible. So sometimes things come across my desk from adult education centers in Northern Illinois. I have a hard time being able to validate student counts of free and reduced lunch and things like that if you're not a public school, but I can help you find the right entity to do so. So all of those things eligible for the E-rate program in the state of Illinois. So what can you get with the E-rate program is the second question from almost every administrator. So what you can get is funding reimbursement or discounts on broadband services. So that is any kind of internet connection. Whether that is a T1 line internet connection all the way up to a fiber internet connection, wireless, wired, cable, whatever you have. The program does cover your main internet connection. So if you have two connections into your building, one is your primary and one is your redundant or backup line, the backup line is not eligible, but the main line is. Now, that being said, there are some school districts in our state that have two lines because they needed more bandwidth. So they had a certain line that only went to a certain speed, and they needed more bandwidth to support their students. And it was actually cheaper to get a second line than it was to get that line upgraded, or maybe that line was not optional for upgrades. And so we do have some school districts who have two connections in. Please, if that's the situation in your particular district, for one building, two connections, that you have to be able to defend that with USAC. That is something that we get questioned because, again, redundancy is not eligible for the program. In addition to that, there is a second category of service that is all the stuff that makes the internet get to the devices in your school district. So network equipment such as routers and switches and wireless access points, wiring, even part of a firewall is eligible for the program. So all kinds of internet access, internal connections, we call it, and maintenance for those programs. So all of those things are eligible for the E-rate program. The category 1 portion has no budget cap. Category 2 does have a budget, and that is changing a little bit this year, and that's part of the updates today. So we'll talk about that in a couple of slides. One thing I want to note at the bottom of the screen, and this is the question that is most frequently asked, no end user devices are eligible for the program. So no cameras, no phones, no Chromebooks or laptops. And again, unfortunately, at this point, home access is also not eligible for the program. That is a really big question that we are getting a lot this year. I will tell you, when I put on my state E-rate coordinator hat, that I feel like there will be some availability of funding in the future for that. Whether or not we see that through the E-rate program, I'm not really sure. So I think the legislative branch at our nation's capital is talking about how they're going to address this need. And it is obvious to everyone that we do have some discrepancies at connectivity at student homes and how that is imperative here, especially brought to light due to the COVID pandemic. So I do think that that is something we'll see in the future. I can't tell you at this point whether that would be a part of the E-rate program moving forward or whether that would be entirely a separate fund. There are two trains of thought there. So, but as of right now, your best shot at paying for those home internet access devices would be through an alternate source like CARES relief funding or something like that. Trying to check and see if we have any questions as of yet, and I'm not seeing anything flashing at me. So if we get a question, Brian, please flag me down. And those of you who are with us, please feel free to type any questions you might have along the way in the chat, and we'll make sure we answer those, if not now, at the end of the presentation. So how much money can you save? If you are a school district participating in the free and reduced lunch program, you can see on the left-hand side, they have broken down percentages to the eligibility of where that falls. So if you are a school that has 47% free and reduced lunch rate in your school district, that would attribute to a 60% urban or 70% rural discount level. So a school district in rural Illinois with a 47% free and reduced lunch rate would get 70% back on their bills. So that is done in one of two ways. You can either get a discount on your bill and just pay that 30%, or you can pay the entire bill and then file for the reimbursement and get 70% back from the E-rate program. That is for category 1. Please note in category 2, it looks really similar all the way down to that last category of our poorest school districts. The 90% discount in category 1 is capped at 85 for category 2. So as you're getting your discount levels, please note if you are in some of our poorest school districts in that last category and you have 75% or more free and reduced lunch rate, you'll get 90% back rural discount on both urban and rural in category 1 and only 85 in category 2. So there is a slight change from categories 1 to 2. How is the rural and urban determined is another good question. That is done by census tract. And so some of our even tiny school districts that sit next to a really large school district in a populated area might find themselves urban. If you get into the system, it will designate for you whether you are rural or urban, depending on your longitude and latitude of where your school district is sitting. If you want to contest that, you can, and we have seen some school districts be able to petition to be rural when they were in an urban census tract when they had those figures to back that up. So please note, the program will do all those figures for you, but if you disagree with those programs' calculations, you can by all means contest that. A lot of our school districts will call, a lot of our private schools will call and say, hey, am I eligible for the program, or I didn't think I could be eligible. Note that less than 1% of your student body being free and reduced lunch will still get you a 25% discount or a 20% discount if you're urban. So the way that I like to say it is, if you're willing to do the paperwork, you can have a 20% off coupon. Again, the more poverty that you have in your particular area, the more you will be getting back from the program potentially. So right now, when we're figuring how much is available for you in category 2, that is the one that I said did have a budget. There was a pilot that rolled out over the last 5 years to determine what that budget would look like moving forward. And I am happy to tell you that we have a new 5-year budget that starts this application cycle for next year. Looking at that budget cycle, it will be a district level budget. In the pilot, we had to figure the budgets from building to building. So each building had a student count. We took that by the multiplier and had to add a budget for each building. We then had to figure out where that switch was going. So if the switch was going in the grade school, it came out of the grade school budget. If it was going in the district office and served the grade school and the high school, the budget had to come out of both buildings. It was kind of a complicated process. To minimize the confusion this year and moving forward, they have decided this new budget will be at the district level. So you're going to add up the budgets for all of your buildings, all at one district level. That budget would be $167 per student. So you can do a rough calculation off the top of your head to see what your budget will be moving forward. If you're a library, they figure those budgets by square foot of the library space. And so that figure is $4.50 per square foot for libraries. And so those will be the set amounts moving forward for this year. However, there is a $25,000 minimum per building. So if you calculate that out and divide 25,000 by $167, you will get 149 students. So if you have a building in your district that has less than 149 students, you will be eligible for that $25,000 building amount. So we have some school districts in our area that have 60, 80, and 120 students. Those buildings will be eligible for that minimum amount of $25,000. That is a significant increase from the minimum we saw in the pilot. The pilot was only $9,500. So we really tried hard at state E-rate coordinator level to make a case that a building is a building and it costs just as much to wire and distribute internet in a building that serves 100 students as one that serves 200 students. Looking at those building sizes nationally. And so that was a big win, I think, for small school districts around the nation. Also, districts that have 11 or more school buildings. So 10 and less school buildings, you will get to choose building by building and then add it together. I'm going to do an example on the next slide. But those who have 11 school buildings or more, so our larger school districts with 11, 12, 22, 100 school buildings, will determine whether they're going to do the student count or whether they're going to do the minimum per building. So you can kind of calculate which one works best for you, and you have to indicate that for all of your buildings in the district. Those with less than 11 school buildings can do kind of a hybrid budget, and they can pick the ones that are 25,000 and also the ones that have more than 150 students. And that will be my example because that's the most complicated to figure out on the next page. So again, this is based on the student count inside the EPC portal. That student count is updated each year. The update window just did open this Monday. There are some questions about how we're going to update those numbers this year and where exactly to update the district number, or where to indicate if you're a large school district, how many buildings you have, and therefore which option you're choosing. And so that's still kind of getting ironed out. As I said, the window just opened on Monday. So do cycle back with me if you are one of those large districts, or if you want to get in there and update your numbers for this school year count. Traditionally, we choose to use the fall housing report in order to validate those numbers. And so what happens is you get in and use your fall housing report numbers that are typically turned in the beginning of October to indicate how many students are in your building. You also turn in that SIS report to ISB, and we use those totals locally to validate if USAC has a question on how many students are there within your building and how many of them are eligible for reduced lunch. I did check before our webinar today, and my understanding is that that has been pushed back as a deadline, and those are not due until mid-November. And so as you're getting those fall housing counts for mid-November, please know those are the ones that we will be using in the system. That being said, the program does allow you to use last year's numbers, and there seems to be some concern in the field about the accuracy of those student counts and numbers moving forward due to the fact that we've had a lot of changes in our economic environment due to COVID. And if you want to leave those numbers at last year's numbers, please know if this year you file it and you have 250 students and you find that out of that 40% are eligible for free and reduced lunch, and next year you find you have 300 students and or many more of them are eligible for free and reduced lunch, you can always get a bigger, better budget in future years. You will never get less than what you have this year. So my best recommendation moving forward at this point would be to use the numbers that we have on file. If you're comfortable with the ones that you've collected for this fall, you can move forward with that. If you are a little unsure about this accuracy of those numbers, then you can stick with last year's numbers, and that's okay. And again, we can shore up those numbers in the next application cycle if you feel like there's a discrepancy or a difference in your discount level. So again, we're going to self-report those in the EPC portal. They are brought forward year from year. So if you don't change them at all, they are going to remain the same numbers that were in the portal last year. And again, districts are responsible for your non-discounted amount. So as we said, and I'm going to say that on the next page as well, as we've said before, you get a budget for your whole district, 167 times your number of students in that building. And then you calculate for that building, but you are still responsible for that 20, 30, 40, 60%, depending on what your discount level is. Here is our example. Still surprised that we don't have any questions. So feel free to just type on in if you have some. This is a Category 2 funding example. This is an actual school district, so a big thank you to Clay City CUSD 10 for being a great example here today. They have 331 students in their district. Their district is 63% NSLP eligible. So they do get an 80% discount on their bills for internet access and internal connections. They have 3 buildings within their district, and you can see the number of students there and what the calculation would be at $167 a student. So for example, Clay City High School with 51 students would have had a budget of $8,517. However, they can choose the minimum budget of $25,000 for that particular building. The same case would be for the Clay City Junior High, but the elementary has over 150 students, and so they would use the calculated budget higher of the two, which is the $32,565. To figure the Category 2 budget for the district, you would add those 3 totals together, getting $82,565 for that district. Because Clay City is an 80% district, ERate will pay $66,000 of that. Clay City, however, will have to come up with the 20%, which would be $16,000, 500 some. So what this means is this is a 5-year budget. At this point, Clay City can decide to go out and have a spending spree and spend all $88,000 or $82,000 this year and buy all of the equipment they need. However, if they do all of that spending this year, come up with the $16,000 on their own for the match, and they move forward, they will not have any budget for the residual next 4 years. Some school districts choose to do that budget all at once and just update all of their internal connection every 5 years. Other school districts choose to break that out and maybe do wiring in the buildings this year, wireless access points next year, routers and switches the year after that, or they'll do one building at a time. So Clay City might choose to do the high school this year, the junior high next year, skip a year, and do the elementary after that. So however it works for you in your 5-year budget, it's up to the district. You do have the same, again, the same total. And if the students were to go up to 400 students next year, she would get a little bump in her budget and have some money left over to spend in the next 4 years. So I'm going to pause for a minute just to see if anybody has any questions on that. That is a pretty complicated calculation for this year. If you are questioning what your budget is, just want somebody to take a look at it and let you know whether your calculations are correct or not, please let me know. It's always really good before we file our 470s, and I'm going to get to the forms here in a second, to have an idea of how much is available for you in the program. So that's why I cover that in our first webinar of the year. So this is the application process for ERate. And for those of you who have joined me in previous sessions or have also talked to me on the phone, this is something that I typically share with our newbies to the program. It is color-coded and walks you through the process. Please note there's an applicant line and a service provider line. You are the applicant, and the whole process for a year starts with the 470. The 470 is our open bidding form, and the program does require you to post a 470 when you need new services or products and wait 28 days before picking a provider. All of this is done in the EPC program available from the website. It's called the EPC portal. I like to call it the EPIC portal. And so therefore we'll go into our EPIC portal, we'll post our 470, and all of the providers that are participating in the program also have access to the portal and can see any school district that posts a bid. So you will go in there, they can respond to your bids via email, mailed to you. Sometimes they give you a phone call and say, hey, I have a couple of questions. Can you answer them for me? And then get a bid for you. But you'll get a bid from your providers. You'll evaluate all of those bids with a rubric, just like in a classroom. And the highest scoring rubric will win. And that is when you will select a service provider. Once we filed that 470, typically in the winter, waited our 28 days, chosen our vendor, then we go to the meat and potatoes of the form, which is the 471 form, where we enter in our contract details. So we'll say, this is the provider I've chosen. This is the amount that I've agreed to. Here's a copy of the bid or contract moving forward that we are entering into agreement here with the 471. This form has a hard deadline. That deadline is typically mid-March. So calculating back, we can say mid-March is the deadline for the 471. About a month before that would mean mid-February is the deadline for the 470. I'm a proactive program person and choose to encourage everyone to file your 470s before the end of the calendar year. And I offer support in alignment with that to encourage you to file them earlier rather than later, especially complicated 470s for new fiber builds or a whole rewiring of a building or something like that. But we will file our 470 and then our 471 for services to start here July 1st of the next year. So we are fortunate in Illinois that our fiscal year corresponds with the fiscal year for ERate. So our services start date is July 1st, just with our fiscal year. So this is a program where you are pre-planning and asking for funding that will take place in the next year of services. There are a few more forms to file along the way, the 486 to confirm funding once you are granted your funding, and also the invoicing form to determine whether you will get discounts from your provider or whether you will pay the whole method and then file a form at the end to collect your funding. So multiple forms through this process. This graphic gets a little overwhelming for people, so I simplify it in this way and can tell you the 470 is done in November, December. The 471 we typically file in January through March. And the 486 is usually when we start services or get our applications funded. It has a target date of July 1st. Then, after you've received services all year, if you are not getting discounts on your bills, you will file a 472 and collect your funding along the way or at the end of the program. So once you've received all of your products, paid the bill, you will get reimbursed with a 472. Or when you receive all your products and you pay the bill, you will only pay your share and they will invoice USAC. So typically these forms here on the end have a traditional due date of October. There have been some waivers this year for those invoicing deadlines due to COVID. So if you want to go out and check and see if you've collected your money from previous year, that would be the FY19 funding, and now would be a great time to do that. Also to see if you have received funding for your district or entity for this year, if you filed that 486 form to confirm funding. So this is the time of year here in the fall that we either collect our money or confirm our money. Again, I'm not seeing any flashing. So I guess we're either really confusing and going too fast or really, really clear with our points we're making today. Still, again, please feel free to pop something in the chat if you have a question along the way. What to do right now? So what to do right now is please log into the EPC. For those of you who have never been into the program, you may have to make a phone call to USAC to gain access to the program. For those of you who have been in the program, there will be something special and new for you this year. There is new security put in place at the EPC. So each time that you log in to the Epic portal, you will be required to enter the email address that you have on file with USAC, and they will send a multi-digit code to your email. You will then check your email in another window or maybe on your phone and enter that multi-digit code in for new security. Not that different than if you're logging into a bank or something like that. It's just a new level of security implemented at the USAC this year through the FCC's request. So we do have that higher level of security this year. Once you are in the EPC, you can check on the status of any of your funding since 2016. So any of your files that or any of the forms that were filed previous to you, if you're just taking over for someone else, will all be in there. You can also check on the current status of your request for this year. So maybe you've requested funding, but you don't know whether you've been approved or not. You can do that in the EPC. This is also the place that we will file our forms here moving forward. So when you're ready to file a 470 form for bidding, you'll do it here in the EPC. You can also update your student counts. Everything is done right here within this platform. The only exception is the financial information. So as you log in this year, if you have access to invoicing, two options, either the EPC or the BEAR invoicing information. When you log into the BEAR, you need a PIN number that is your signature in order to do that. So if you're new to the program, logging in and you don't see access to invoicing, and that is something that you need to tackle this year, please reach out to me, because we're finding a lot of people with a new security maybe had two different emails that they were logging in with, an old email for the BEAR PIN. We can get you a new PIN that will show everything in one platform, or maybe we'll try to log in under that old email address. to access your Barron invoicing. So a little bit tricky this year, but easy to iron out on our end as soon as we're aware of a problem. So that's where we're going to go to do all of our process moving forward. Please log into the EPC. Don't wait till the last minute so that you can have all the access you need when you're ready to file for next year. You also should probably check and see, did you collect all of your FY19 money? Many times the school district will call me, we'll do a virtual meeting here on Zoom, we'll go in together and look at the information, and we'll find that everybody filed the 470, the 471, which was the hardest forms, and then lo and behold, never filed the funding commitment, or never filed to collect the money at the end. So if you're going to do all of that heavy work lifting up front, please finish up and wrap up your funding at the end and make sure that you've collected your money. So we are looking to collect money for FY19 currently, and also confirm funding for FY20 if you haven't done that. Both of those are about 15 to 20-minute process each once we get into the system. So that's easily done on a webinar, virtual meeting if we need to do that. I also have a video on our YouTube channel that walks you through filing the 486. I do not have a video for the bear form because those do contain financial records. So I was careful about that one. So do let me know if you need some help. I do have a step-by-step typed out that I can send your way, or again, meet you in a virtual meeting. And also start your wish list for a 470. So there's absolutely nothing for your school district, it's not a problem at all for your school district to reach out to your traditional providers that you work with and kind of get an idea of what they think you might need. So getting an evaluation of your school and what you might need, talking to your IT people if you happen to be a bookkeeper who's filling out these forms, or an administrator, going on out in the school district and say, hey, tell me about how our internet is distributed here through the district and what might be up for replacement here in the next couple of years. So get an idea of what your priorities are and what your wish list might be here moving forward. Also, a really good thing to ask for at this point is to reach out to your service provider that's providing your internet and ask for a usage chart. And that could give you an idea of how much bandwidth that you have for your district and whether you're capping out at that bandwidth level, or if it's more than taking care of your needs, to know if an upgrade is something that you might be requesting. That being said, we did have several school districts reaching out at the beginning of the school year here in July and August saying, hey, due to COVID, we have all these new computers. We have all of these people using video that weren't using video before. We're really getting a strain on our internet access. Can I upgrade within the program? We did not have a mechanism at that time for people to go ahead and issue upgrades. We did just do a cycle for those upgrades. So those school districts that were really needing an upgrade were able to go ahead and file for an upgrade. They have an exception for the rule and could file an upgrade and ask for relief from the program and get that additional upgrade covered as well. So that was a really nice thing that we had happen over the last month or so of the program. So if you are needing to rewire a building, if you have a brand new school building you need to get internet to, if you would like to upgrade your internet from a traditional cable line or T1 line to a fiber opportunity now available in your area, or even if you'd just like to know if fiber is available in your area, you can prepare those RFPs. I have had several school districts reach out to me over the summer that are interested in building fiber between their buildings, owning it themselves, or having a new fiber circuit put from building to building to distribute the internet and also provide for better communication between buildings. And all of those things are eligible for ERate. Sometimes those require RFPs with more details about where your buildings are and where those connections are located within your buildings. So if you need to prepare those RFPs, or if you have a complicated 470 to file, time is of the essence, and let's do that sooner rather than later so that we can iron out all the needs for the providers and be sure to provide plenty of time to answer and ask questions. So what does the Illinois state offer for you for supports? Well, one of them is me. So you have options, opportunities, and options for help for here. So one of those options, which has been a popular one the last 2 years and is new to our state, is the Illinois K-12 Broadband Network. It is a consortium option for all Illinois schools and libraries. So if you are interested in participating in our state network consortium, that will result in them filing ERate applications on your behalf for internet access. They will then negotiate lit fiber transport back to their network. So you will get internet access from the Illinois Century Network and a provider who provide that access. They will negotiate those lit fiber transports on your behalf, and that will cover the connections between your buildings, your WAN connections, as well, or your LAN connections between buildings, as well as your WAN connection out to the world to their internet. So both of those options are available for the consortium. Again, you will get your internet access from our state network, which is the Illinois Century Network, and they have some add-on features that are nice security features and things through their network. And you will get support for this application process, and as well as the answering of the forms, et cetera, through your local regional technology staff. So all of those things available from ICN, which is a part of our Department of Innovation and Technology, or DO IT. The requirements to participate in this program is that you would fill out a letter of agency with the consortium and the circuit information that they need from you. Basically, how many connections do you need? Where are those connections located? And what are the speed of those requests? Each year on June 30th, they will cut off all of the letters of agency that they have, take a look at what's in their basket at that time, and look at all contracts that are ending for that year. So they have already gathered the contracts for this next school year, for the 21-22 school year. Any contract that was ending on 6/30 of 2021, they automatically applied for their behalf as long as they have a letter of agency on file. So if you know that your contract is ending in 2022 or on, or later than 6/30 of 2021, you can go ahead and fill out that letter of agency at any time and sign up as an option. When you sign up as an option, they will come to you with your bid and tell you what they are going to do for your school district, and you can decide at that time if that's something you want to do or if you want to go ahead and apply on your own. So no commitments here in filling out the letter of agency. You're just allowing them to bid out on your behalf. The benefits, of course, listed on the right also are that right now the consortium is covering the portion of cost, so the non-discounted share for school districts. So if they negotiate a contract with a provider to get transport back to their network, and that's $1,000 a month, and your school district would typically cover 20% of that cost, the consortium is covering the cost right now. So they are currently working on that method. That's an incentive to get signed up sooner rather than later for the state options. Worst case scenario is if the consortium ever does quit covering that entire cost, you should have well negotiated rates and the state network and the tech staff working for the regional tech center working on your behalf, and you would pick up those costs in the future. I have not heard that that is going to happen. As a matter of fact, those who are participating in the consortium and leading the consortium are very confident moving forward that they will continue to pick up the school discounted share. So that is an option for you. In addition to that, we also have an option in our state for the state matching grant. This is only for special construction. So if someone needs to bring fiber to your school district to get you internet, this option is a good one for you. It will cover the rest of the build. So if you are a 40% discount school district and it is going to cost $100,000 to bring internet to you, that is still an option for you because you can apply for this grant to cover that 60% of the cost. There's a special deal working with states that if a state is willing to chip in some funds, they will actually increase your discount level by 10% on the USAC side. So that kind of helps and encourages school district or states to put together a state matching grant. We do currently have a funded grant in our state ready to go. We've had, I think, 4 rounds of funding now. We started with around $17 million, and my last calculation shows that there's about 12 to 13 million left in the pot. So it is still available. It is something that is an option for you if you need to get new internet to your school district. It is only for the special construction of those builds. It does not cover the monthly cost of the internet from there on out. Some people have leveraged both the consortium and the state matching grant, and that is an option as well. One is not requirement of the other. If they do a bid for you on the consortium that finds it needs a build, they will ask you to apply for the state matching grant because we're trying to get as much funding as we possibly can. But one is not required for the other. This does include connections between buildings. So if you are looking to get connections between your buildings built with fiber, this might be a nice way, a good opportunity to take advantage of in order to do it. Again, proposed timeline for this. I'm hearing through the grapevine, nothing official yet from the State Board of Ed, that they're thinking of releasing the grant around November, hoping for a due date in April, which would be after our E-rate process this year. We've done a couple of rounds the last 2 years, and really talking about doing just one round that encompasses everyone this year. And in order to get that done, that due date would need to be in April. So they're looking at a due date of April this year after the E-rate application process. And then you would find out by the end of the fiscal year whether or not you were funded by the program. And but you would need to go ahead and file a 471 and check the box that says I'm leveraging state match as you move forward. I do the hands-on support for those who are applying for the state matching grant. So if that does come out and that's something you're interested in, please feel free to reach out to me and I can help walk you through that process. At the Learning Technology Center, we're also offering multi-level support this year. So we have LTC webinars like you're here today and virtual support options. So like I said, always open to those virtual meetings and helping people one-on-one. But we also offer LTC application workshops and some national training this year. So if you would like to schedule a virtual support with me, you can check out our website at ltcillinois.org, about us, and under my staff name, you'll see my Calendly link, which will allow you to set up a time on my calendar to meet with me. You can also just email me at mfiscus@ltcillinois, and we'd be happy to answer your questions by email or also send you that Calendly link right there. Our webinar series, as Brian said at the beginning of our hour, is at LTC Illinois events and then webinars. We will be offering webinars monthly as the process goes along relative to what we're doing in the process with the application at that point. I also offer statewide application workshops. Right now, we are planning for those workshops, and you can see all the wonderful little dots on the map to the right where I usually hold these workshops. I call it my tour of the state. So I typically do a tour of the 470 workshops in November and December, and a 471 workshop tour in January, February. Right now, we're working out the details for those. We are planning those in-person workshops, but we will be abiding by social distancing and mask requirements at those workshops. So we're determining right now just as exactly how many people we can allow at each of those facilities, making sure that they are available at those timeframes. And please keep in mind that is subject to the changes and things that we see from the state as it relates to the pandemic. So we are planning those in person. There will be a virtual option for each. So for example, I have been told that I can only have 12 people in the room that I typically use in Champaign. Moving forward and scheduling that one, we will allow 12 people on the registration for face-to-face, but once that's full, you can also choose a virtual option. Also, you may be totally more comfortable taking that virtual option right off the bat, and so that will be an option to you. If for some reason we have to change those workshops to a virtual setting and we move to that route, will already be ready for that. Anybody who's registered for the in-person will then be allowed into the virtual session at that point. So that is on our LTC Illinois website as well. And as we get those dates and locations set, we will be sending them out to our listservs and things like that. I do usually have a 470 session at IETC. This year, IETC is virtual in November in Springfield. So I've got a virtual session set up for that conference and did apply to have a session for the 471 at the IdeaCon conference in Schaumburg in February. And so we'll see where that conference goes. Those options were virtual and face-to-face, and I said I would take either one. So we'll see where that pans out. In addition to that, there is a new federal offering this year. The federal offering is brought to you by CETA. Again, I mentioned earlier, I am on their governing board. There were a lot of people like me out and about in states that decided to leverage our support and leverage our insight and offer a statewide training. These virtual training series are provided from October 22nd, which is Thursday, for our newbies, what is E-rate, et cetera, on through April 1st, and we'll take you through the process. There are 2 90-minute sessions offered each month on the same day. They are in the afternoons on Thursdays. These sessions are offered for a fee. So there is a national training fee for these. I'm offering this in addition to the sessions that we're doing. I will be providing a few of the sessions in partnership with my other state directors. So you may log in and see me with someone from Iowa, and then the next session you may see someone from Louisiana with someone from Kansas. So we are all splitting up the duties there and providing a wealth of information in addition to our state levels this year. So you are welcome to check that out at ceta.org. The registration is at the link that's provided here on the screen. And then if you would like to stay connected with the ERate and everything else that the LTC does, we do have a community. Here is a link to our community. You can also find that on our website under the link community. We offer a blog and a newsletter, so please do check us out and follow us at ltcillinois.org on Twitter. And if you have any questions and answers, I would be happy to answer those. I think we've come to the end of our time, but I will stay here on the line just to see if anybody has any questions and answers I can answer for now. For those of you checking this out in a recorded manner, you can always reach me at mfiscus@ltcillinois.org, and I would be happy to help you there. Brian, do you have any questions today about ERate?
I do not. You've done such an excellent job explaining it. I do not have any questions. It doesn't look like there's any in the chat right now, but we'll go ahead and pause for a moment here to just see if anybody throws anything in the chat for you.
All right.
And there you go.
All right, pulling up in my chat. Okay, can I speak a little bit to using last year's free and reduced lunch numbers? Yes. So please note that I'm adding this out here with my own preference and my own thoughts here. So there seems to be some concern nationally that the numbers that you will be receiving for free and reduced lunch this year may be skewed due to the fact that we're giving everyone free and reduced lunch. So in other words, people won't be filling out the forms because they don't have to, because everybody gets free and reduced lunch this year. So there seems to be concern that those forms will decrease in the number that you will receive this year. If that is a concern of yours, the program will allow you to use last year's numbers. So you would use last year's counts with last year's percentage for free and reduced lunch. ISB can validate that. ISB does validate every February with a list that allows us to kind of check and see where your school district is. And if USAC has any discrepancies or questions, we can iron that out. I'm a little concerned on my end, again, a personal thought, that because they've pushed back the numbers requirement until November, that may push back our validation list as well. And if that happens, we'll be past that window where we can change our numbers in the EPC program. So I'm a little concerned that we'll be using numbers, but we won't be able to see if they're the ISB numbers. We may just be guessing and moving forward here in this year. If you use this year's numbers that you have collected in your student management system from registration, and you feel confident with those forms that you have and you're comfortable moving forward with that, by all means you can. If you would like to use last year's numbers and just kind of ride on that for a year, I think that that's kind of the national trend of what we will be seeing. And then we can shore that up when it comes to the FY22 school year. If we see a large discrepancy, we can get you more money for your Category 2 budget, or we can get you a higher discount level at that time. I think that we are going to see a massive influx of our poverty levels fluctuating right now through this entire school year. So even what you capture here in the fall may be completely different to what we're seeing in the spring. And so know that we will be able to shore those up in future years. But if you're concerned about the accuracy of your numbers this year, you are absolutely eligible to use last year's numbers. And we already have an ISB spreadsheet to validate those if you need to see that.
Mindy, there's a question in the Q&A, which popped up. Are schools now receiving free lunches? How do we calculate? Not sure if that was.
And that was kind of what I was just talking about. Sorry about that. It's going to pop up the Q&A on my side. So again, without collecting those forms, because everybody's getting free lunch, my best recommendation at this point is to go with last year's numbers that are already in the system. If you feel like you have more accurate numbers or current numbers for this year and you want to go ahead and update them, please do. Just know that you need to have some documentation to back that up. I'm just a little worried about the timeline of our state collecting them. I'm not alone. There are many states across the nation who are concerned about what those numbers might look like moving forward. We have not gotten any official guidance from the FCC or USAC on how to move forward, but we do know the rule already stands that you are eligible to use the numbers from last year if you choose to. And so right now that's my plan B or my plan A, I guess, in my book, with plan B having to go ahead and update those numbers if you feel confident in them. If you do not, because I know we had a couple of entities calling in who were not traditional school districts, if you do not participate in the free and reduced lunch program, that is okay. You can do a survey method. There are other ways that you can collect that information. Reach out to me. There are 2 or 3 options that we can work through for you.
All right, we'll just kind of hang out here for another minute or so, see if any other questions roll in.
Fun way to spend a Tuesday afternoon talking about ERate. Hoping it doesn't snow some more up north.
All right, well, I think we will go ahead and wrap up for the day. Thank you, Mindy, for joining us, and make sure that you check back and visit all those resources that Mindy's putting together to support you for the ERate season.
That's right. It's the season of ERate.
Awesome. All right, well, until next time, thanks, Mindy, and thanks everyone for joining us.
All right, thank you guys, and have a great evening.